All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today and welcome to Don't Get Grilled, Know Who Did What and Where in Laserfiche using Audit Trail. My name is Jeremy Ruprecht and I am an implementation manager here at CDI. So today we're going to be talking about what versions of Audit Trail exist. We are focusing on-premises Audit Trail, not Cloud Audit Trail, FYI. Um, so what are some of the easy pre-configured reports in Audit Trail? Where is Audit Trail data stored? How to create custom reports, and what things are not actually covered in Audit Trail. But before we begin, let's go over a couple housekeeping items. Participants will be muted. Questions can be posted in the question box. Slides and screenshots will be available upon request. And this webinar session will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. So what actually is Audit Trail? So Audit Trail allows you to track events in the Laserfiche repository and then view those events as a report. And also, as of Forms version 11 update 4, Audit Trail can also now track events in Forms. We're going to use Audit Trail. Well, Audit Trail is a very useful tool to investigate issues in your repository. It can tell us who's deleted or moved a file, changed a name, renamed a folder, deleted a template, created a new metadata field. It can also let us know who changed security settings inside of Laserfiche. And it's a useful tool for troubleshooting problems with forms processes. It can also be used to closely monitor actions of a disgruntled employee and many, many other uses. So personally, I've had a lot of instances where I get called in because something's went wrong in a repository. Typically, it's a missing file or folder. There's a lot of heat on the situation. People need this information immediately, and they also need to know why did this happen in the first place and how do we stop it from happening again. Now, I can always find a missing file without using Audit Trail, but I can't figure out what actually happened to make that file go missing in the first place without Audit Trail. So Audit Trail is going to help you let you know what actually caused the problem in the first place so you can do something about it and prevent it from happening again in the future. And basically, anytime you aren't sure if a problem is coming from maybe automation that you set up or a user error, this is something that Audit Trail can help you with. So which events do we actually log in Audit Trail? You can select which events you want to audit, but by default, new repositories will audit successful events on the Everyone group for things like account information, entries, metadata, page creation, annotations, privileged information, or sorry, privileged operations, login and log on session information, volume information, and if you do have the records management module installed, it will also, by default, track records management actions. So whenever you do need to apply audit settings to the entire repository, this is the time you should be using the audit tab on the Everyone group. I will be showing you this in the demo portion of our session today. You can also track events on a single user or any single group. The settings are very granular and they will let you only track what it is you actually want to know. So please note though, only events that are currently being tracked will be available in the audit logs. Meaning if you start tracking a new event today, you're not going to be able to pull audit information from what happened with that event yesterday or the day before. It will only start from the day that you start tracking it. So you may be wondering at this point, which version of Audit Trail do I actually have? There are 3 versions available: a starter, a standard, and an advanced version. For on-prem, if you have an enterprise or a Rio system, you should have the advanced already. And with Avante, all 3 versions are add-ons, so you could have whichever version you selected upon purchase. If you're not certain, you can reach out to your account manager, and that's something that they can help you figure out. So let's talk about what the starter edition actually covers and what it will help you with. So As I was talking about with file deletions in my own experience, don't get burned. Always know who deleted a file. This is something that Starter Edition will help you out with. Now, have you ever needed to know who logs in and for how long? Do you want to know how long, who's using Laserfiche, who's using it the most, who's getting the most benefit out of it? Well, we can track login and log off information with Starter Edition. Have you ever wondered who keeps changing your very meticulously created records management properties? Well, if there is somebody doing that, Starter Edition can tell you who, and then you can talk to them and prevent that from happening again. So with the Starter Edition, we're only logging successful events. But have you ever wondered what doesn't work in your system? So standard and advanced editions will also track unsuccessful attempts at any of the events that we've discussed so far. Do you find that you have users that are getting added to groups that are then inheriting permissions and rights that they shouldn't have? Well, standard edition will tell you anything you need to know about group membership and who is adjusting that. It will also help you keep track of anybody who's changing login rights for Windows accounts. In addition, it will also track LDAP events and any linked Windows and Laserfiche accounts. Moving on to the advanced edition. Do you ever need to know who keeps changing the access rights on this folder? Because I do. This happens to me all the time when I'm setting up a repository and everything looks right. And then all of a sudden I find that everything is wrong. And it seems to be access rights that do it. So Advanced Edition will let you know which user it was that went in and changed those rights. And then you can take away their rights to change those rights. So how do we actually find out who created users and groups? This is something Advanced Edition yet again can help you with. We'll go over any user creation and group creation. Also, if you ever need to track all searches that a user performs, this part is only available in the Advanced Edition. Would you like to require your users to enter in a reason before deleting a file or printing something off? This is a feature that is available in Advanced as well. It's very easy to set up. I'll be showing you how that works during the demo portion of this session. In addition, the advanced version also allows for custom events, creating and deleting trustees, changing passwords, watermarks, entry permissions, and working with classification levels. So moving on to data storage. Let's see, before version 11 of Laserfiche, audit data was stored in SQL. But to improve efficiency and to prevent SQL databases from growing too large and causing performance issues, this has been changed to use a binary file. So in Audit Trail configuration, you select a date range to run reports on, and then a search catalog gets created with the date range from the information stored in that binary file. FYI, the search catalog is roughly 15 times the size of the original uncompressed Audit Trail logs, and it can be saved on a separate hard drive if needed. So by default, a repository's binary is stored in the audit folder of the repository directory. And for forms audit logs, they are stored in the audit log folder, which you configure on the Laserfiche Audit Trail configuration page under the Forms tab. I will be showing you this in the demo section for session as well. If you do change the audit log folder after a source has been registered, the existing audit logs will have to be manually moved to the new location. So audit data does roll over at set intervals or at a set size. And since Audit Trail automatically creates the new logs when the old logs have rolled over, it is very important to back up the directories and its contents to ensure that all your audit information has been backed up. Ensuring all audit logs are included in your backup procedure and updating your backup plans as necessary when new logs are created or removed is going to save you a ton of headache and hassle in the future. So As I said, it's very, very important to back up your binary files. This is where your raw data is stored. So if these binary audit logs are not backed up, loss of the audit logs will result in permanent loss of all audit data. So do not let this happen to you. Preserve your audit data. You should consider your audit logs to be just as important in your backup process as your volume or database information. FYI, the search catalog can be re-indexed from the binary files, so that part is not actually required to be backed up. So we've talked about what Audit Trail will help you with, but what situations are not actually covered by Audit Trail? So first of all, source file modification. So your information in Laserfiche is stored in volumes, which are stored in Windows. So if someone were to go into Windows and change those images, the text, or the electronic files manually that way, that is not something that Laserfiche can track. So it is very important to secure your volume data using Windows security. You may also want to consider using a third-party application to monitor activity on that media. Similarly, database modification that happens outside of Laserfiche will not be tracked. So if someone did get into your SQL Server and change any data there without having Laserfiche open, that is not going to get tracked. So it is very important that your database is protected using its built-in security. And you should also ensure your data files are secured from unauthorized users. One other thing that Audit Trail cannot cover are screen captures. So there are many, many different ways in which content currently being displayed on a screen can be captured. For example, the print screen key can be used to take a snapshot of whatever you're seeing on your screen. And there are third-party applications, and you can even use a digital camera to take a picture of what's displayed on a screen. These are not things that Audit Trail can track. So if your organization is concerned about screen capture, there are still some steps you can take to prevent users from performing this activity. We'd recommend using a third-party application to prevent the use of the print screen key, using Windows security to prevent users from installing third-party software. And if possible, you can always prohibit cameras, camcorders, and other data capture devices from the workplace if you are concerned about people taking physical pictures of their screens. So when somebody goes to edit or view a file in Laserfiche, there is a copy temporarily saved locally of that electronic document. So there are also third-party applications that would allow somebody to save that in a different location. So those are things that you also want to watch out for. In addition, Laserfiche does allow you to, with the client and the web client, it allows you to copy images, text, and field data. And once this information has been copied, it can be pasted into any other application. So this means that a user can use copy and paste to export information from a Laserfiche document. It just might take a while. So although information will have been exported from Laserfiche, this would not be reported as an export event because they're just copying and pasting images from the document. In addition, WebLink provides access to content stored in Laserfiche through web browsers, and the web browsers allow users to print the current web page. So once that data is in a third-party application, like a web browser, it is no longer being monitored by Laserfiche Audit Trail. So data stored in a repository can be printed from a browser or another third-party app, and it will not be logged as a print event. All right, so with that, it's time to move on to the demo section of our session today. So we'll start off taking a look at our main Laserfiche Audit Trail page. Should look just like this when it reloads. There we go. So this is what you would see when you first log in to Audit Trail. And these three reports come pre-configured. So let's kind of go over those for a minute. We have our first report for deletions. We just click on that. We can see anything here that's been recycled, deleted, probably purged as well. So yes, and entries purged, as you can see over here on the left in the lower left-hand corner. We can see all of this information. We can see who did it. We can see the entry ID of what was recycled. We can see where it used to exist. If you have your repository set up to require reasons for deletions, they would appear right here in this column. You can change your column display to whatever it is that makes the most sense for you. And you can filter all of the columns in many, many different ways to just make things a little easier to find. Over on the left-hand side here, if you wanted to change some of the settings, right here's the relative date range. So we're only looking at the last 7 days. So up here, right here, where it says 30 days ago, this is telling us how long our search catalog is actually made for. So my search catalog only goes back 30 days. So we can look at anything up to 30 days ago. Let's just do that right now. And also, right now we're looking at the everyone group, but we can remove that and just put in one single user. We can also enter in one single entry ID if we're looking for something in particular. So now we can see just the things that I have deleted in the last month. And boy, I've deleted a lot of stuff. Moving on to our next pre-configured report, we have failed logons. So if you ever need to know who's failing at logging on, and this one seems to be failing to show me when I have failed to log on. So probably haven't failed to log on, unfortunately. We'll check out page creation though. I know I've created some pages, and yes, I have. So here we go. We can see creating pages. We can see which resources come from. So it's coming from this combined PDF or all these PDFs over here. And that's about it for the pre-configured reports and Audit Trail. So if we want to create a new report, just click on that new report button. And in this case, let's create a new report for sessions. So this will tell us whenever somebody logs on, when they log off, and if they terminated. This can help us figure out who's actually using Laserfiche and how much they're actually using it. So now that we've added event types, we can choose an entry ID if we want to. We can choose a user if we want to, but I want to keep this as everyone. And we can choose our date range. So let's just say 30 days. And apply. And now it shows us all that information. So this is every time that someone is logged on or logged off of my system in the last 30 days. There'd probably be way more if this was not a demo system. So now that we have this report, we don't want to rebuild it again. So let's save it. Lower left-hand corner here at the save button. And we can just call this log on, log off session. And we can save. And now when we go back to our main page, you'll see our log on, log off session is just right here, ready to be run again. So that kind of covers Audit Trail for the repository. But as I mentioned before, with the newer versions of forms, specifically anything after update 4 of version 11, we can now track forms events as well. So we have 3 of them here that are pre-created, the ones with the little check next to them. And then I created this one for my own purposes, which we'll talk about in a second. So right over here, we've got forms deletions. This can let us know whenever somebody's deleted a draft, deleted an instance, which is definitely useful to know. Deleting custom themes, forms, processes, variables, or even reports. And as you can see, it lists it out all right here, who did it and when, and what type of resource was taken away, the name of it, and so on and so forth. So very cool stuff there. Let's see, we have forms logons. So you can see I've signed in a couple times in the last couple days. We can see the IP address it comes from. Yes, this one is what it is, but yeah. So this is a demo machine, so we're not seeing real outside IPs here. And then we have forms process creation. So this is going to let us know, is anybody copying processes? Are they creating new processes? Are they uploading processes? And are they creating processes with solution templates? So you can see right here, I copied a process yesterday at about 6:13, and I created a process a few seconds after that for this demo. So those are our pre-created reports. But this is a report here, it's Forms Diagnostics one. This is one I created myself because I keep running into issues where I get called in from a client and they have a forms process and they know something is going wrong with it because their users are reporting that they might have to maybe edit a variable or skip a step or retry a step a bunch of times or reassign a step to a different person that it's not initially assigned to get things moving again. But then when I ask, which instance did this happen with? Do you have an instance number that I can look up and see exactly what went wrong? Usually the answer is no. And then usually when I ask, when did this happen? Sometime a couple of weeks ago, and that's all the information I have. So I created this report to help me figure out where these pain points lie in forms. Very simple report, and I created it just the way I did with the log on, log off report before, except I just came over here and I selected for my event types anything that I thought would be useful to me to know. So whenever somebody interrupts a step, if they reassign a task, if they restart a step, retry a step, skip a step, stop an instance, or update a variable value, this is going to let me know. And just right here in the report, so I can easily see this happened at this time. I can see the resource, so I know which one it's coming from. We've got the ID numbers after it, so I know which one to actually look at. And yeah, I'm very happy that I now have the ability to do this because it's going to save me a lot of time and hassle. So that's about it for the actual reports themselves. Let's take a look at the let's take a look at the admin console and some information in here that is related to Audit Trail. So before I mentioned that the everyone group is where you should be setting anything for the entire repository. So right here under users and groups, there's the everyone group. And if you just right click and go to properties, and again, this is in the admin console, there's an auditing tab. And right here, you can see all of your possible settings. So your successes, your failures. And if you have advanced, down here, we have the reasons, right? So if I want somebody to have a reason every time they delete an electronic file, I can just edit it here and say duplicate. That's now a reason. So now that I have that set, when somebody in my repository tries to delete an electronic file, it's going to ask them for a reason, and it will provide a duplicate as one of the options. So I'm going to remove that because that's not actually something I want in my repository right now. But there we go. If you wanted to add that to an individual Windows account, repository group or repository user, it's exactly the same. Just go find the user, click on properties, go over to auditing, and then you can select your events. As always, it's better to put these on groups and have users inherit their membership from groups and their rights from groups. But every once in a while, it may be appropriate to apply that to an individual as well. Under the auditing tab, you can see some settings here, and this will let you know where your audit file location is, where your rollover directory is. And you can also set your maximum file size for the binary log and a maximum file age if you would like. So next up, if we look over into Audit Trail configuration, if you haven't looked in here for a while, this tab right here for forms will be new to you, but this is where we set up login for forms. It's a pretty easy setup, but the main thing I want to point out is that this is where you can change your default audit log folder for forms. It's just right here in the Forms Audit Trail configuration. And then over on the form side, if you go into Forms configuration under the auditing tab, this is where you can find and set what you actually want to track in forms, successes, failures, which type of options you want, and then save it here. And that is about that. So on that note, are there any questions? I do see one here. Just give me a moment. Yes, they can also enter their own. So the question here is, if you add reasons, can they always enter their own reason, or is it restricted to the list? They can enter their own, but they don't need to enter their own if they're using one of your pre-configured ones. So yes, great question there. Now let's see here. Give me a moment. Okay, does Audit Trail automatically come with Laserfiche, or is it an add-on product? So great question. As I mentioned before, if you already have Enterprise or Rio on-prem, Audit Trail Advanced comes with it. Otherwise, it is an add-on product. And yes, if you're not seeing the auditing tab, that does mean that you don't have Audit Trail, but that is something that you can add. How do you adjust the length of a search catalog? Another great question. That is done in the Audit Trail configuration. Let's see here. Under the search catalogs tab. So right here, you can see the different search catalogs that I have and my form search catalog. So if I wanted to change one, we can go in here and just kind of delete the one that we currently have and then add a new one with a different date range, and then it will re-index and recreate a new log. So great question. All right, let's see. So yeah, does web hosted Laserfiche has a similar function? And I assume by web hosted, you mean cloud, and yes, it does. It has a very similar function. It works very much in a similar way, but as everything with on-prem and cloud, they do work differently than each other. So great question. Okay. Yes, so question is, can you provide which versions of forms have Audit Trail for forms? Which versions of Audit Trail have forms? I do believe that is all versions of Audit Trail should have the ability for forms. The forms part comes along with a Forms Professional license. So if you have Forms Professional, you should be able to do this with any version of Audit Trail. Okay, let's see, is that it for questions? On the custom date range, how far can you go out? I've seen people go out a year. But the thing is, so with the custom date range, if you needed to look at something farther back than that, you can do that by kind of like reloading your old binaries and looking at the information from there. So let's just see if there's a actual limit on here when we get in here. So let's see, looks like 999 days would be the limit. I do not suggest doing that. Your search catalog would be outrageously large. So most people try to keep it to 60 or 90 days. I do have some clients that are doing it for, about a year. So let's see, another question. Does Laserfiche remember everything since go live, or is there somewhere to limit how long the data is stored? So the data does get stored, everything from go live that's already being tracked as an audit situation. That all goes into the binaries. The binaries are the smaller files that get saved, and these are files that do get rolled over every so often. You can set, and you can back up your older files. So if you want to back up your binary files from 2 or 3 years ago and remove them from your system for now, that's fine. If you do need them again, you can reload them and put them back in. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Got some questions about Power BI and aggregating those in Audit Trail. That is something I'm gonna have to follow up with you offline about. It's a little bit outside of what we're talking about today, but it's still a very good question. This is a question, is it restorable for forms deleted? I think that means if a form is deleted, is there a way to restore it? That is a no. Not unless you have a backup. And let's see, I think that's about it for questions. If I did miss your question, please feel free to shoot me an email. You can find us here at CDI Support and Here's our YouTube page, and this is my contact information. And other than that, thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Yes, there is a way to export the reports. There's an export button in Audit Trail. Thank you all very much, and have a great day.